Let's do it in the board. But then you have to erase it though.
It's fine.
Okay. Then don't say I didn't tell you to erase it. If you let it there and you forget, I will not help you next time. Bring it in. The first one that I was talking.
Is that
Number 4.
Number 4, right here.
It was on 40
So,
before. When you gave it to me, it was on 40. This is the 10.
before. Avery. This is our observation right here.
Yeah.
You have bacteria plus lead plus cover plus cap. The first thing I need to know is what when I said lead on, I want to say lead on, and this one is equal to plastic. Yes? Can we agree on this? The next thing you say half cover, right?
Yes.
So I put in here half cover.
With the paper.
And this is the cover is the paper card. I believe that was it's an index card, but it's a paper card. Okay. So what is that talking about now? Now I can say, okay, based on this, and I want to compare it.
Yep.
If I compare this and this one has more bacteria growing than this one. Notice that?
Mhm.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
In color, just in color. Take a look. In color, just this one this one right here is slightly more darker compared to this one.
Yeah.
So what I can say is, next bullet point. Bacteria growth mid rate. So half away. It grows only half away. A mid rate. Those are the first thing. And then I need to connect this because how do I know this is medium growth? Well, that's compared to the next petri dish, picture number 1. And compared to this is compare.
Or should we compare it to 3 or no?
You can compare it to 3, you can compare it to 2, you can compare it to 1. You can set it up like this. Like that. You can set it up like this if you wish. Like that. Right? If I set it up like this one right here is still looks less growth than any of these ones. It still looks like a less growth. So you can even say compare it to next experiments. Play. That's what we have so far. So now it comes the part of interpretation. What does this mean? So it means the following. We know that bacteria when it's covered with plastic, that when the UV light is coming through, it's coming with a lot of force. But as it passes through the plastic, the wavelength weakens. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But not just that. Now we have paper and plastic. This is plastic. They are two together. The wavelength is the same. It's weakened. So meaning that plastic is very effective and reduces the stress of the wavelength of UVC light. And it doesn't matter if you cover it with plus paper or without paper. The effect will be equal, will be similar. Therefore, we see the growth of the colony equal across the board. We see completely equal across the board. There is no difference in the half that the paper was covered with the lead, because the major force of protecting is actually the plastic. Is the major force protecting it, not
The paper.
not necessarily the paper. The plastic is effective in reducing wavelength.
By itself, no matter
By
what.
itself, it can reduce wavelength. And you can go a little bit deeper and say the reason could be, because there is no definite, the reason could be the way plastic is built. Plastic is polymers, right? If you see under the microscope, plastic has these little square shapes that are entangled to each other. So what does that mean? As light comes through, this is a plastic. This is light. This is a plastic little layer, this layer right here. As light's coming through, there is something that we already covered in the lab.
Refraction.
Refraction. Wonderful. There is this.
So it bounces off, basically.
It bounces. The light, when it passes through, it doesn't go through directly. It scatters around. That's why it's equal. That's why there is no strength. Once it reaches the bacterial plate that's right here, is weak. The wavelength, if I was to draw this, the wavelength is coming in like this, right? It's coming in like that, very close to each other. But as it comes in here, it spaced out, which is weaker. This is where in play 4 you're looking at.
Okay.
All of them. That's what you're looking at.
I'm just confused. I mean, no, I get how that can play a role in the plastic, but would the bacteria have other properties? Because our bacteria, we have a lot of colonies in 4.
Yeah, absolutely. They will have other properties depending on the bacteria. So therefore, UV light is not universal. It doesn't work for every single bacteria. That's why it's ideal if you can check it in other places that they have the different bacteria.
Yeah, because our 4 has
Because-
a lot of colonies.
And this one is exactly what we're talking about. You see this? So in this one, in plate 1, we have bacteria, lid off, cover half. So we remove this, we cover, this is not half, by the way, I
I
would
know.
not call that half, that's
I
more
know.
like 1/4. Bacteria colonies in this side is growing completely, but in the other side, it is not. There is only these colony formations in here. Then this has to be done when resistance. Bacteria expresses a resistance. So it comes. I think this is the point where Amelia was trying to get to the point of genetics, but she couldn't narrow it down enough to a point of wearing genetics. Because in this case, for these colonies, what is happening is this. That's too big of a bacteria. Let me make it a little bit smaller. So, you have those little bacteria in there, right? This is bacteria growth. UV light comes in. This is UV or UVC. When it comes in, it breaks down the cell walls. But remember something else? Remember how many times we put bacteria? How many times?
4,
3.
2 to 4.
For the UV.
3. 3.
3, right?
3, yeah.
3, right? So that means that what? Layers. So bacteria is sitting on top of one on top of the other one. So when UV light hits, it will kill the bacteria that are at the surface, at the most surface. And this is where I hypothesize something. I say like, UV light, it kills anything that is at the surface, helping any bacteria that's at the bottom
Underneath.
part
Continue
to
to
be
grow.
protected in some way. Perhaps by the carcasses of the bacteria that just die above. If we not remember anything from resistance, right? From resistance, antibiotic resistance from that little slide, we know that any bacteria that's left
Multiplies.
not just multiplies. The cell walls are broken down. What happens? Everything that's inside, it leaches out into the environment, including something so beautiful, DNA, pieces of DNA, little chunks of DNA, just little bits of DNA. Those bits of DNA can be absorbed or uptake by this little bacteria that's growing. Now, when the bacteria divides, the next generation, it will have a little bit of the new bacteria on it. This generates resistance to UV light. And I can say this is where the colony is coming from those little cells that were a couple little cells that were left over in there, that were able to incorporate little bits of DNA that was in the environment. And now as they divide, they might have incorporated bits of DNA that was released, and that is translated into these colonies. We can see these colonies because they have been growing for 7 days under normal conditions and is still in there. So this is what we can consider. You can consider this conjugation. You can also see transformation, horizontal transfer. Any of those means you can use them, but you need to select one of them that makes more sense. Conjugation, it means it has to be two living cells. Remember, two living cells that comes together. That's conjugation. Transformation is a foreign DNA that comes into the media that is incorporated into the cell. That will be transformation, yes? Horizontal gene transfer, we know there is actually any dead thing that releases bits of DNA that can be incorporated. So if I just do cross elimination, could be horizontal gene transfer more likely to happen under these conditions. So when you explain something, that's more or less how you want to do it, like explaining what technically and logically could make sense. So this is this petri dish and what you have, very similar in the instance. But also has to do when you species. Some bacteria, for instance, E. coli or Bacillus subtilis, could be by itself resistant to UV light. Now it comes down to exposure time, right? So this is, I can also say, okay, this is true. This is one possibility. This is T. This could be one possibility. T0 time. Now what will happen if I go T2 time? Instead of 4 minutes, I say 10 minutes. What will be the outcome of this?
The same as plate 4? No. Oh, if it's half with the same conditions?
Same conditions. The only thing I change is time.
A lot more growth.
What will be the outcome?
Probably more.
A lot more dead cells.
Kill more.
So
You
take
kill
up
it.
more of the area.
You kill more. Most exposure time, it means more time for any of these bacteria that was on the top to be killed down and the UV light reach to the layers that were missing
And underneath.
and underneath. So exposure time is very important. Time that you expose. How close you are to the exposure and how long you are exposed at. That's very important. So in here you can also think about time. Was it enough time? You can say no. For UV light to be effective, it has to be T, it has to be more than 4 minutes in order to be effective. Because at 4 minutes, there is bacteria that's still alive. But if we control to be time bigger than 4, then it's very likely that all these bacteria will die. That's another way to take a look at this. Another way to explain this. And that's more or less how you want to explain this. But then you get to this one right here. Take a look at this. What is the difference in this? Any colonies in there? What is the difference compared to this one?
There's no colonies in there.
Okay. Read the conditions.
It's 3 minutes versus 1 minute.
The exposure time.
Thank you. And my hypothesis has been proven.
Yeah, the more time, more to kill, and less growth.
The less growth, the more time. Now, the only hypothesis that in here is missing is
Distance.
Depth of work, or depth of view, or work distance. At which distance is my exposure? The closer it is, the more effective will be, because also you are releasing heat. You are also releasing heat, not just wavelength. Wavelengths releases heat. So that heat also could be contributing to it. So the farther you are, the less effective you will be, the more time you might need. The closer you are, you may be more likely to kill things, but might need less time. So it can work exactly how it will work in the microscope. Remember how both of them works a relationship? Field of view, work distance. In this case, could be very similar. Distance plus exposure time, more or less on how it is to bacteria grow. So this is another way that you can think this. So if you notice this, you can add it. You can add in your discussion again. And you remember what was the distance?
It was like over
this.
Yeah.
So I will take a ruler and measure it, and I say like, this was my constant.
Gotcha, yeah.
This was my baseline at which I did. Now, if I want to be a little bit one step away, what will happen if I just look at this? This is a huge work distance. This is a relative work distance, because remember when can you pass me a ruler? Maybe a ruler in there? Anybody remember when we were talking about when everybody, when they saying like, I do my nails every 2 weeks and blah blah blah, and they were like,
3 weeks now.
yeah, something like that. Remember that? This is 14 centimeters work distance. Now, when we were talking about this, some of here they were saying like, okay, when you put the hands in this, actually the light is almost touching my fingers. So
Yeah.
if my light is right there, that is 7 centimeters. It's half of that. So if I use my UV light at the standard condition of how commercial settings use it, will it kill all these bacteria? Very likely, yes. But then I think about what will be the risks for the thiodimer that we discussed. Because UVC damages thiodimer, and it can create those damaged pieces of DNA. That's another way that you can discuss this. That's a lot of exposure, right? Like a 15 centimeters is nothing. If you leave it there for enough time, it can create some breakdown. And also, what does that mean for the bacteria that's in your hands? You know, you're definitely clearing around all the bacteria that's in your hand when you have at that distance. That's the way that you want to answer these ones.
That's like 2 pages.
Any other
right
question?
there.
Huh?
That's like 2 pages.